The Battle of Loum is a rather important conflict that doesn't have too much detail written about it. Of the sources I have found, only two major ones stood out to me. The first source would be from the Gundam OVA series, Igloo, which is spotty at best but is the first main instance where it goes in depth about the battle itself. The second source is from Gundam The Origin, and is a retelling of the story. There are some details here and there that are different between the two, such as Igloo's version having the battle take place around the 15th of January, while Origin's version has the battle take place around the 23rd of January instead. For the most part though, this video will be using the Origin version of the story, but we'll be talking about the differences at the end of the video. So in general, the Battle of Loum takes place soon after Operation British, more commonly known as the First Colony Drop. Because the operation did not cause the Earth Federation to acknowledge defeat, Supreme Commander Giran Zabi decided that Loum would be next. Loum was a politically important colony for the war, as it was split on which side of the war to support. Because of this, the Federation sent their second fleet, also known as the Tainem Fleet, to the colony in order to help in persuading the colony and convince it to rest assured that the Federation has its back and will protect it against Zeon in order to prevent another Operation British from happening. As this was all public information at the time, upon seeing this, Giran was basically like, I bet, and set in motion the series of events that would lead to the battle itself. The preparations and plans for the attack did not go unnoticed by the Federation, however, as Fleet Admiral Yohan Ibrahim Revel, a name that will come up rather often when analyzing the One-Year War, eventually learned of the attack to come around the 23rd of January UC 0079. A plan was immediately put into action with the Federation launching their third fleet from a newly built base at Jaburo to meet up with their first fleet, led by Admiral Revel himself, at Luna 2 in order to act as support and reinforcements for the Tainem fleet at Loum. As it is kinda difficult to miss a mass launching of new ships from Earth, Zeon knew about Revel's combined fleet moving to Loum to try and reinforce the Tainem fleet before or during the battle. The Tainem fleet consisted of 15 Magellan-class battleships, 45 Salamis-class cruisers, 22 Lepanto-class missile frigates, and a various amount of smaller support craft, such as the Columbus-class transport ships and Saberfish space fighters and recon craft. This one fleet manages to rival almost Zeon's entire navy in size. Revel's fleet, quickly approaching their location, would be around 3 times larger than this singular fleet, would make the success of the next attack impossible if they were to link up. Because of this, Vice Admiral Zabi, the Supreme Fleet Commander for this battle, would engage the Tainem fleet directly with a majority of Zeon's navy, while a special assault regiment consisting of 2 battalions of mobile suits would be sent to flank Revel's fleet. This fleet, under Dulce's command, will be aptly referred to as Dulce's fleet. The 2 battalions under the Special Assault Regiment were led by Char, a new pilot who participated in the Dawn Rebellion about a year ago, and Miguel Gaia, a member of the Black Tri-Stars, a group of soldiers who acted as test pilots for Zeon's mobile suit development program. As their numbers were much lower than that of Revel's fleet, and much less well-armed in comparison, they would be unable to effectively mount a head-on assault. Instead, a commando team led by Char assaulted the Bay Area around the colony, creating a diversion the Federation could not ignore. Seeing how the Tainem fleet would soon have their hands full with Zeon's fleet, Admiral Revel was forced to send about a third of his combined fleet as a relief force for the colony and deal with any stragglers from the attack. Char and his team were able to regroup with the rest of the Special Assault Regiment before the assault on the rest of Revel's fleet began. Back with the Tainem fleet, shots had just begun flying. They had just been fired upon by a group of Musai-class cruisers and began returning fire of their own. While they were shot at first, they had not taken many casualties, if any at all, and managed to sink a good chunk of their aggressors or cause them to retreat as their ships generally outranged the enemy. Thus, they began to push towards Zeon's home colony. Unbeknownst to them, the rest of Dozle's fleet, which had initially begun the assault, fully dispersed and instead of retreating, regrouped to try and assault Revel's fleet, which was following close behind. Pilot Char is the first to make it to Revel's fleet and manages to quickly sink a Magellan-class battleship with a surprise attack, claiming the first ship kill via mobile suit for the battle. He would later shoot down 4 more ships during this battle and gain his infamous nickname of the Red Comet. As they were distracted by his sudden attack, Dozel's fleet position had just been confirmed by Revel's fleet to be dangerously close, completely negating their range disadvantage and allowing them to get a devastating alpha strike following Char's attack. Gaia and the rest of the Special Assault Regiment soon catches up and refuses to give Revel's fleet any time to breathe, as they quickly follow up with their own sudden assault. Despite their desperate attempts to fend off the mobile suits, Revel's fleet was inadequately equipped to deal with them, as they were too nimble to consistently track with their point defense systems, and they quickly were able to outmaneuver the Saberfish fighters dispatched in an attempt to dogfight them. Just as quickly as it began, the battle would come to an end as the Black Tri-Stars were able to sink the remains of the flagship and capture Admiral Revel himself. The conflict would come to a close, despite the fact that by this time, the Tynum fleet had just managed to make it to the doorsteps of Zeon's homeland, with barely anything standing in front of them. They instead chose to turn back in order to cover the retreat of the remains of Revel's fleet. Though both sides suffered heavy losses from this conflict, Zeon had managed to win a morale victory, as this only further increased the support for the war despite the losses sustained. The Federation, on the other hand, had just lost a significant amount of their navy and would require a bit of time to recover from this. They would also be forced to sign the Antarctic Treaty, essentially surrendering to Zeon and recognizing them as an independent power, along with decreasing the size of the Federation's military presence, as continuing the war with what remained of their navy would be rather risky. These clauses just stated would soon change, however, as Admiral Revel was quickly rescued from Zeon's captivity and gave news about the current state of Zeon. Zeon had suffered similar losses to the Federation, at least proportionally, as their navy was in a rather sorry state post-battle. This would cause the treaty to instead be changed to a wartime treaty rather than a treaty of peace that prohibited nuclear weapons of mass destruction from being used by both sides, called for humane treatment of POWs, and prevented attacks in neutral areas or settlements. The war was still going to rage on. And that was the Battle of Loum, quickly summarized for easy digestion. As I mentioned before at the beginning, there are multiple accounts and iterations of this battle mentioned, depending on the sources. I have decided to tackle the version told by Gundam the Origin, specifically the animated OVA, because I've also heard that the manga does change the details a bit, but I can't really talk too much about that as I don't have easy access to it. As for the Igloo OVA variant, there are a couple details that I said at the beginning that are different, such as the date of the attack, but there's also a couple details about the battle itself that have changed, such as the tactics used, in this case a full frontal assault by both fleets, and the scale of the battle being much larger. So in this battle, in the Origin version, I want to say there were around like maybe 200 to 300 mobile suits in total. In Igloo's version, there are over 10 times that, with almost 3,000 mobile suits deployed by Zeon, and the ships on the Federation side in this battle ranged from, was about, I want to say, 150 ships in total, including all the support vessels. In the Igloo OVA, there were over 300 ships deployed by the Federation, with about 80% of them being lost in battle by the end of it, and there was also the inclusion of the orbital cannon, known as the Jormungand, used in order to mask the deployment and appearance of mobile suits, as this was their first large-scale usage in combat. The main reason why I went with the Origin OVA's version is because it was much easier to approach and absorb by people who are introduced to Gundam. So, while some other materials may refer to the version of this battle told by Igloo, such as the 0083 Rebellion manga, I feel that most Gundam fans were introduced to the series via the anime, so I decided to approach from that angle. If you haven't watched the Origin OVA, I would highly recommend it, especially for people looking to get into Gundam, as it acts as a prequel and does a great retelling of the story while introducing a ton of characters from the main story, which I wish had more screen time, or I wish I knew more about when watching that original anime. With that all said, I do plan on doing another episode of this in the future, potentially on a different conflict. So, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.